You look fine, your lifts are decent, and you're in shape, and still you wake up stiff every single morning, the same nagging spots coming back, and something just feels off. It's not your age, it's your body quietly breaking down, and it sends 5 warning signs before it finally breaks. But most men miss all 5 because they just think it feels normal. Hi, my name is Seth. I know because I lived every single one of these. I've been in over a dozen car accidents, lived in chronic pain for over a decade, and doctor after doctor gave up on me. But I found a way to recover. So be honest with yourself, because if you're missing even one of these things, it's the beginning of the domino effect, and it's costing you more than you realize. The first sign is waking up stiff every single morning. And if you've done this long enough, it starts to feel like just you, like it's normal, but it's not normal. Even though it may be common among many people, it is the first sign that something is off. But if you take a frog, just like they say, and put it in boiling water and slowly turn up the temperature, it doesn't realize that it's starting to slowly boil. At the same time, your body becomes what it repeatedly does, for better or for worse. But the reason why you're waking up stiff is because your nervous system is locking you down, because it doesn't trust certain ranges that you're accessing. And so it wants to limit the range that you are move into. So next morning, test yourself. Do you wake up? How long does it take for you to start moving? Do you move extremely slow at first until you get your first cup of coffee in? All these types of things in the morning and how fast you can ramp up, there are warning signs whether there is something going on underneath that needs to be addressed. And the thing is, if you don't address it, it's just gonna get worse over time and not better. For me, it felt like I had a full body compression suit that I couldn't take off. No matter who I listened to or what I did, nothing seemed to change it. And most people actually do the same things I did. And that leads into the second sign, number 2. Your flexibility is rented and not owned. You may stretch and feel good for maybe an hour, but then it seizes up and you go back to where you used to be and are tight all over again. This was me, and I felt like no matter amount of stretching I did, nothing seemed to held. And it wasn't just by my own knowledge. I saw countless physical therapists all trying to get me to loosen up. However, just like a fish that is swimming upstream, as soon as it stops swimming, it floats back down to where it was before. And this was the position that I was in. However, what I didn't completely understand is that mobility and flexibility opens the door, but strength is the wedge that keeps it open. So if you are stretching into a position and you don't have strength there, your body is gonna seize up all over again to prevent you from moving into that range. And the reason why is because it's trying to protect you. So you have to reteach your nervous system that it's safe to move in those ranges. And it is not just by static stretching alone, or AKA relaxing into a stretch. There are other methods, which I'll link in a video in the description on the best methods I like that help me turn this around. However, a test that you can do for yourself next time you're stretching is how far can you go before you're all warmed up? That is the range that your body trusts you in. So if you want to go into a deeper range, then you have to strengthen that range after you gain that flexibility to move there. So remember, if you cannot access a range without stretching, you don't own that position, you're only renting it, and that rent comes due every single day. You have to repeat stretching in order to access it again. You don't want to be stuck in this loop. Sign number 3 is the trickiest of them all, because it doesn't show up in something that you're doing. It actually shows up in things that you stop doing. Sign number 3 is the list of movements you have programmed yourself to avoid. And you may have not have done this intentionally. You probably have done this unintentionally. However, if you think about the movements that you avoid doing, then you probably can list quite a few of them. For me, this was bending over. It was the hardest thing in the world to pick up my kids' toys, something that would take me in an injured state an hour to do. My wife was able to do it in 5 minutes. However, many people, as they get older, they stop doing simple things, even as sitting on the floor crisscross applesauce. And I too thought, oh, I must have just jacked out my legs and they got huge, so it was just uncomfortable and harder to do. But actually, I just lost the mobility that I had in my youth. And we start to avoid certain things like this because they are uncomfortable. But by doing so, you actually starting to limit yourself and the ability to move even greater. It's kind of like a fish on the line of a fishing pole. If they start to ease up the slack when the fisherman is reeling it in, they may ease it up a little bit, but as soon as they ease it up and have more slack to work with, then the fisherman just tightens up that reel even more. And so when you avoid certain movements, like being in a deep squat, then your nervous system is going to actually lock it down even more. For you, these movements may be doing a deep squat or picking something up straight off the floor, which is not a convenient height like you would be when you're deadlifting, or it may be twisting sideways under load, putting something on the shelf, reaching overhead. Depending on who you are, it might be different. But the funny thing is, these movements that actually break you down, make you feel uncomfortable, and hurt you even by accessing them, they are actually the movements that you need not to avoid, because your body becomes what it repeatedly does, for better or for worse. I had many doctors in the past tell me not to bend over to pick things up, but squat down with the neutral spine. Do not twist under load, because your spine is a weaker spot. However, that's the exact opposite of what you need to do if you are weak in these positions and avoiding them. Because just avoiding them makes you weaker and weaker and more vulnerable, and that area a greater danger zone for injury. You actually need to access these ranges and strengthen them so that, one, you train your nervous system that you can move freely in there and you're not gonna get injured, and you'll be stronger, more resilient to injury, and overall you'll just feel better about any way that you move, and you won't have to be like walking on eggshells trying to do certain tasks. So think to yourself, what are the movements that you avoid? Is it getting up off the ground? Is it hanging out in a deep squat, or picking something up off the ground that's not the perfect height of a deadlifting barbell? Think of your body like a concrete building. The muscle is the concrete, and the tendons, ligaments, and connective tissue, that's the rebar underneath holding you all together. And if you don't have any rebar structure and an earthquake hits, you're going to crumble. That's the unexpected event that you did not plan that will injure you. But most injuries are actually preventable by having stronger rebar, the connective tissue, ligaments, and tendons underneath. So you need to strengthen those, but they are not the flashy ones that look better in the mirror, but they're gonna keep you training longer without injury, becoming more consistent. So you have to understand where your weak links are. If you're not sure how to find those, I actually created something to help you. It's called the Iron Body Assessment. It'll help you walk through and find your weak links to strengthen them, so when something unexpected happens, you don't crumble over under that earthquake. So the link will be in the description. Sign number 4 is, it's never the big lift that took you out, it's the little things. Think about last time you got injured. Was it from doing a max attempt on a deadlift or a squat? Or did you just start to have pain in your elbow all of a sudden from training you have been doing for years? Oftentimes, the pain that you start to develop all of a sudden was not all of a sudden. Your body has been compensating and you haven't been balancing it out correctly for the type of training that you've been doing. And so it's been compensating in the background, and that pain is a sign of that. And then if you get injured by carrying something heavy, trying to twist through a doorway, that is not your max lift. Since you have lacked certain movements or exercise in your training, you had weak points, and those weak points is what broke when you entered them into that danger zone, which was not in a controlled environment in the same type of workouts you are used to inside the gym. So think to yourself, when's the last time you got injured or start feeling pain? Could you point to a certain event that was in the gym where you were performing your best and you just did too much? Or was it a time where it was a small little thing that you didn't really think much of that surprised you when you got injured, because you're able to do so much more inside the gym rather than outside the gym? Sign number 5 is after an injury or taking a break of training, your numbers came back, but the feeling that you had before didn't. Let me explain. So if you started to have your same lifting numbers, such as the bench or the squat, take your pick, but you started to feel stiff or uncomfortable, you don't move as well, you just don't feel your best, and you know something's off, but in the mirror you look great and you can lift a lot of weight. However, you may just sum it up as, oh, it must be because I'm just getting older. However, that's not the case. There are people when they're 80 years old that still not only look good, but feel great. So how do they do it? They have to live their lives a little bit differently. You have to start remembering that you're training your body 24/7. All the different signs that we just mentioned, all of these are probably signs that are going off before this final one. So ask yourself, would you trade the amount of weight you're able to lift to the feeling that you used to have when you were younger? Because if you would do that, like I thought about and doing in a heartbeat, then chances are you're doing a lot wrong that you need to change in order for you to feel your best, because it's not just your age why you're not feeling well. I came to the epiphany that it wasn't just about how much I lift, because I was able to gain my strength relatively quickly with muscle memory. But coming back from an injury, I did not feel great anymore. And so I had to rebuild my foundation. It's like pulling a bow versus throwing a rock. You can only throw a rock so far, but for an arrow, you have to pull back the string. You have to go back before you're able to go even further forward. And so it's the same with your training. If you want to feel better, you have to start to rebuild your foundation. You have to go back to the basics and gain strength and fix your weak links. And I'm not talking about strength on the bar. I'm talking about the structural integrity code, not how much you can lift, but how well your body holds together, how good you feel. Imagine waking up out of bed and being able to have a full cup of energy, full mobility before you had any coffee, before you warmed up. This is how I felt when I was in my teenage years. I would get pumped up by training montages, so I'd do that every single morning. I would literally roll out of bed, hop into the push-up position and bust out push-ups and then do some jump roping. And that's how I started my day, full of energy. And I realized that if there was a way back to that, then I would do anything to do it, because if I can feel that much greater, then I'm able to actually do more in my day as well. And I have been on the road to build a body of iron that is resilient to injuries. So if this hits you, then go ahead and hit the subscribe button, because that's what we're doing here. We're trying to feel our best, become our strongest, and to move mountains that we thought were impossible before. And remember, if nothing changes in your life, nothing will change. So if you have even one of these 5 warning signs, make sure not to just passively watch content, but act on it so that you can forge yourself into a body of iron